This is the hardest step of building any map. In case this is your first video in this series, I've made a whole series about how to build an adventure map, and I've based it around the movie Castle in the Sky. Now, this is not the last video in the series. I've got one more after this. I've pretty much completed this map, but in my next video, I'm going to actually release the map. The next video, I'm going to talk about how to get your map noticed, how to make trailers, and that kind of thing. But today's video is going to cover a lot of material. You see, finishing out your map is always the hardest step. Not because there's any one thing to do that's really difficult, but because there's like a million things you've got to do to really button up all the loose ends. So in this video, I'm actually going to give you a lot of random tips that are really going to help finish your map out. So pay attention. So first, let's talk about all the different things I had to worry about to finish up the map. There's this whole area that needs to be built out. I need to insert a puzzle here, a puzzle to get up to there, make this place look a lot more interesting than just a field, figure out what to do with this doorway, figure out a puzzle or something to do in this room, design a checkpoint system to get through the whole castle without actually using any checkpoints, and build an extensive cloud system that makes it feel way more immersive. And do all of this with less than 10,000 memory left. Okay, so first let me show you this cloud system that I built around the castle. This is made up of the meteor trails in the meteor particle gallery, and this part right here is all hidden from the player. So the player's first view of the map is over here, and they're going to see this huge cloud wall that surrounds the entire castle, which is very similar to the movie. The main characters come through a big storm that surrounds the castle, and so I've duplicated that here. There are clouds underneath here. These are mutator zones, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Now, this may have been a big mistake to do this first, because the problem is everything else that I need to do is kind of hidden down in the clouds. Like some of my mechanics and stuff are hidden down here, which brings me to my first big tip. So when you're building a big map like this, you're gonna have mechanics all over the place. Now, there's a really cool thing in creative mode. If you go to your island settings, you can look down in the bottom right. There's a thing called channel browser. And here, this lists all of your channels and what's going on with them. So you can see here, I've used quite a few channels in my map. You can even see all of the different devices you've used, and then you can teleport to them. So look, I'm gonna teleport to this trick tile. Boop! And here I am right next to this trick tile in my map. This is actually really useful, especially if you know what channels are where. That helps me so much to like get around instead of like trying to search for things missing in clouds like this. All right, so now the next problem I went to solve was how to have a checkpoint system in a map that is basically 100% made off of props. That means I can't like place down, you know, a normal checkpoint like this anywhere on the map because it's not like tied to anything. So I built a little system using teleporters and mutator zones. Let me show you how it works. So here are all of my mutator zones, and they're huge. I made the width and the depth 100 squares, and then the height is just 1. And you can see that it covers pretty much any part of the map. And then if the player does fall into the mutator zone, it will warp them to a teleporter. Let me just show you. So if you're at the beginning of the map here, and you're running around, and you accidentally slip off, it just warps you right back. It acts as a checkpoint. And then after running around a little while, you might just happen to pass a trigger or something that makes it so it warps you back to this point. So I'm gonna show you exactly what I did. So on the mutator zones, it's pretty simple. So I have this setting right here that says on player entering zone, transmit on, and then that warps to the teleporter that I have set up to channel 16. The reason I have 5 mutator zones here, guys, is because I have like 5 checkpoints. And each checkpoint is set up to a different teleporter. So there's one right here, there's one over here, there's one down here, etc. Now next to the teleporter, I also have a trigger. So this trigger is what's switching the mutator zones. So when a player passes this trigger, it turns off the last mutator zone and activates the new one so that when someone falls, it teleports them to that teleporter. So this was kind of an intricate system to set up, and I had to test it a bunch of times to make it work. Which brings me to my next really important tip that I'm gonna show you. Testing can be a big pain because you wanna like set up spawn pads all over the place, and it's just a pain to get to where you want to test the spot. So it's this really cool setting that I'm gonna show you. So if you go to My Island and the game settings, you're gonna scroll down and see the spawn location. And you can either start at the spawn pads, in the sky, or at your current location. Change it to current location, and then anywhere you are in the map, like say we'll stand up here on the top of this roof, and then I'm gonna hit start, then the game starts wherever you were standing. That makes it really easy to go and test different things because you can just start right where you're standing. That's gonna save you a lot of time instead of having to like start at the beginning of your map and playing through everything so that you can test that one spot that you're trying to test. Now that I had that working, it moved on to like figuring out the puzzles. So at this point in the map, the player's gonna find their way into this place. And I was gonna have like some big puzzle in here, but I just didn't really have the memory for it. So I had to make a decision to cut out certain things that I had in my head. So instead I have a simple like storytelling mechanism, and they're just gonna have to hit a button here, which will then unlock the door that's over here, and then the player can continue. This space here though is where I wanted to have a few more puzzles, and I wanted the player to spend a little bit more time in here. This isn't what I had originally envisioned for this space. I wanted to have like ruins and water fountains and all sorts of stuff going on, but I just didn't have the space for that either. So I threw in some trees that I had already used in this space in my map, and then repurposed some of these vines on the ground to kind of create like a bush, like overgrown weed type feeling. And the puzzle I decided on was to just grab my robots, which I made in a previous video. So you can see down here was my army of robots. So I just repurposed those guys and kind of spread parts of them all over this like area. And then I'm gonna have a little prompt that says the robots or the guardians are the key. And then as you run around and activate these buttons, which are invisible by the way in the game, these stairs will appear slowly so that the player can then make it up to the top of this pillar. So there's 9 buttons. I'm not gonna show you where all of them are yet. There's 1 or 2 that are pretty well hidden, but this is a good way to add in a puzzle that's gonna add a little bit of time to your map, and it only cost me like 1,000 memory maybe. And I think it looks cool to have the like robots like getting overgrown, kind of busted up in the ground and that kind of thing. And then I really like this spot here where it gets the player to kind of like look around more at the castle and see how big it actually is. And then I wanted to do more with this puzzle, but it's pretty simple. So there's the different color balls on the top of these pillars, and then you see a green and a blue one over there, and then the player has to hit the blue and the green pillar, and then that would activate my magical bridge, which I did another video about the magical bridge appearing and how to do that. But let me just kind of show you how this puzzle works. So it's a simple mechanic, but it's really cool and effective. So when someone hits those pillars, it's gonna activate this music sequencer here, and that music sequencer is gonna hit this trigger. The only thing I changed on this trigger was that it transmits every 2 triggers. So they hit this pillar, and I have a setting on here where they can only trigger it once, and then they hit this pillar, and then that trigger finally activates, which activates the magical bridge. Here, I'll just show you. So you hit the blue one, and hit the green one, and then the bridge appears magically, and it just is a really cool experience for the player. And then I had to figure out what to do with this doorway, and I just had to scrap my original idea. I had originally wanted to have this like really intricate doorway that disappeared in like a spiral, but it was just taking up too much memory, and I decided to just use like a crumbled doorway kind of feel. And that's just a concession I had to make at this point in building of the map. There's a few more things I have to do to finish this map up. I need to throw in some more billboards for like telling the story, and then I just have to button up a few more things before I finish it out. But this is pretty much complete, guys, and I'm pretty happy with this. I feel like my building has gotten way better since I started. So I look at this and think, man, I could have done such a better job at this. But that's how it goes with map building, guys. You're gonna get better every time you build, and sometimes you just gotta publish and get it out. Because I have ideas for another map I want to make for Halloween, and I gotta get this one done first. Okay, so there you have it, guys. I hope I didn't confuse any of you guys too much, but look out for my next video next week, where I'm gonna show you how to like promote your map. Thanks for watching, and have an awesome day.